Haunted mansions have long been a source of fascination for many people. From the chilling tales of ghosts and ghouls to the eerie atmosphere of these old houses, it's no wonder why they have become popular tourist attractions. However, what lies behind the mystery surrounding these haunted mansions in America? The answer is a combination of history, folklore, and sometimes even science. In this video, we will explore the stories behind some of America's most famous haunted mansions and uncover what is really going on inside these spooky abodes. Number 10. The White House. Over the years, many people living and working at the White House have described various spectral sightings and experiences. The ghost of Abraham Lincoln is by far the most famous spirit to haunt the White House. Lincoln and his wife, Mary Todd, held seances in the White House, according to Mental Floss. They hoped to contact their son, Willie, who died of typhoid, presumably from contaminated water pumped into the White House. They never contacted their son, but they did claim to get in touch with President Andrew Jackson, who was loitering in his former bedroom. Longtime White House employee Jerry Smith was one of the first to describe a Lincoln ghost encounter when his story was shared in a 1903 newspaper article, and President Ronald Reagan reportedly entertained dinner party guests with stories of his dog barking at invisible specters and his daughter Maureen waking to a transparent figure looking out the window of the Lincoln bedroom. It may have been President Lincoln himself returning to his former home in the hopes of reuniting with his wife and son. Additional sightings have occurred throughout the years, while even British Prime Minister Winston Churchill reportedly encountered Lincoln's ghost as well, while he was stepping out of the bathtub. Many have taken place in the Lincoln bedroom or the Yellow Oval Room on the second floor. First Lady Grace Coolidge and Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands claim to have seen Lincoln as well. White House dogs have also been sensitive to ghostly spirits. When passing the Lincoln bedroom, President Ronald Reagan and First Lady Nancy Reagan's dog Rex would sometimes stand outside the room and bark while refusing to enter. According to the White House Historical Association, President William Henry Harrison, the first president to die in the White House, continues to keep up residence. It's not just former presidents like Lincoln and William Henry who haunt the halls of the highest office in the U.S., however. Dolly Madison, wife of President James Madison, is also said to visit the gardens she helped plant, and Abigail Adams, wife of President John Adams, is known to do her laundry in the East Room. Number 9. The Whaley House. While the story of the Whaley House's origins may seem as simple and innocent as any family history, the truth is, many believed this home was destined to be haunted before it was even built. The property was the site of one of the town's most famous public executions, that of the hanging of the infamous thief Yankee Jim Robinson. It wasn't long after the Whaley family moved into the home that sadness and despair were thrust upon them. First, their young son Thomas, who was only 18 months old, died of scarlet fever inside the house. Several years later, in 1868, the Whaley family, which now included Thomas, his wife, and their 5 children, returned to the home. In 1871, when Thomas was away on a business trip, a group of armed men held Anna Whaley at gunpoint as they seized the courthouse records from the home. This, many say, was a turning point for the family and the house. Several years later, 2 of the Whaley daughters got married inside the home. Violet, the younger of the 2, married George Bertolacci, and although she gave it her best effort, the marriage was unbearable, leaving Violet divorced and full of despair. She was so wrought with depression that she decided she could not live with the shame and shot herself in the chest on August 18, 1885. Over the years, many descendants of the Whaley family lived and died in the house, including Thomas, Anna, and their children. Workers and visitors began to notice strange and mysterious sounds, sights, aromas, and encounters. The first and most well-known ghost that lingered within the house and on the grounds was that of Yankee Jim Robinson, as he had died right on the spot where the home was built. Baby Thomas, who'd been the first in the family to pass away, had always stayed close by, as reported by many who have visited the home. They could hear tiny footsteps, the sounds of him crying, even giggling when no one was in sight. Others report seeing a young woman lingering on the second floor of the house, believed to be poor Violet, still consumed with sorrow. Although no one has lived in the house since 1953, the spirits of the dead are still there, waiting for visitors. Workers on site and guests who've toured the house tell accounts of many unusual and spooky encounters. Some say they've seen a figure looking out the upstairs window long after the house is closed for the day. Number 8. The House of Death. When a property is deemed the House of Death, you know there's bound to be at least one gut-wrenching story attached to it. Mr. James Borman Johnston. Johnston was responsible for founding a reading room, library, and the famed 10th Street Studio, a collective with studios, galleries, and annual funding for resident artists, unique in New York City at the time. After he died, his wealthy widow moved their daughters into the House of Death in the 1880s. The house's most famous tenant was Mark Twain, a mustachioed legend of American literature, at the tail end of his writing career but at the height of his celebrity. Twain, whose real name is Samuel Clemens, was resident at the House of Death. Mark Twain only lived in the house for a little over 12 months. Twain was a noted ghost skeptic, yet wrote of a clear and plain paranormal experience he had in his new home. One evening he witnessed a large piece of wood kindling move in the air all by itself. Thinking the wood was being moved by a rat that had some use for the wood, a new piece of furniture perhaps, he shot it with his gun, and it suddenly fell to the ground, surrounded by a few drops of blood. Although Twain did not have many pleasant memories of the house, he can still be seen roaming the stairwell of the House of Death. Subsequent occupants have seen his visage trudging up and down the stairs, commonly considered the most haunted section of the home. He may also be responsible for disembodied marching sounds that have been heard everywhere in the vacated parts of the house. One notable Twain encounter was reported in the late 1930s. By 1937, the house on West 10th Street had been converted into a co-op building made up of 10 spacious condo apartments. Shortly after the building's transformation, a newly resident mother and her daughter bumped into Twain's ghost, perched on a window seat. He nonchalantly approached the pair, saying, "My name is Clemens, and I has a problem here I gotta settle." He disappeared moments later into thin air. Jan Bryant Bartell and her daughter took up residency of a spacious apartment on the top floor in 1957. The famous actress, psychic, and writer moved into the apartment, which once housed the servants. Bartell reported almost immediately that a monstrous moving shadow would often follow her around the house. One time she writes that she had seen a ghostly figure of a man standing in a hall. Bravely, she reached out and tried to touch whatever she was seeing. She felt something, but nothing like she had felt before. She described it as a substance without substance, chilly, damp, diaphanous as marsh mist or a cloud of ether. Number 7. The Winchester House. The Winchester Mystery House is an architectural wonder and historic landmark in San Jose, California that was once the personal residence of Sarah Lockwood Pardee Winchester. Sarah's infant daughter died of a childhood illness, and a few years later her husband was taken from her by tuberculosis. Shortly after her husband's death, Sarah bought an 8-room farmhouse and began what could only be described as the world's longest home renovation, stopping only when Sarah passed on September 5, 1922. From 1886 to 1922, construction seemingly never ceased, as the original 8-room farmhouse grew into the world's most unusual and sprawling mansion. But what remained is indeed a mystery. Even before her passing, rumors of a mystery house being built by an eccentric and wealthy woman swirled. Was she instructed to build this home by a psychic? Was she haunted by the ghosts of those felled by the gun that won the West? Did construction truly never stop? What motivated a well-educated socialite to cut herself off from the rest of the world and focus almost solely on building the world's most beautiful, yet bizarre mansion? These mysteries and more are what has drawn over 12 million guests to visit the Winchester Mystery House since the doors opened June 30th, 1923. Number 6. Lizzie's Bed and Breakfast. In this austere raw-boned structure on 2nd Street, Implausible that it occurred in broad daylight at one of the busiest times, with horses, buggies, and street traffic only mere feet from the front door, with the number 92 tacked to its column. And yet, it did. Two people, Andrew and Abby Borden, both in their golden years by that era's reckoning, were mercilessly hacked to death with a hatchet. Abby as she cleaned the upstairs guest room, and Andrew as he lay napping on the sitting room couch downstairs. Not a sound had been heard by the myriad pedestrians outside, but the house, now stained with blood, had witnessed it all. Andrew Borden bought the home in 1872, and immediately had it remodeled from a two-tenant dwelling into a place his small family could call home. He chose the house due to its pragmatic location, a short walking distance to his businesses on Main Street, 1 block over. It sat amid other businesses, horse stables, stores, a laundry, and a makeshift restaurant. Andrew's wife kept house and took pride in it, while his two daughters, Emma and Lizzie, looked about at the heavily floral-covered walls as a prison. A young Irish maid, Bridget Sullivan, was the only other inhabitant. There were no hallways in the house, with the exception of an upstairs landing. One had to go through one room to get to another. As a result, locks abounded. Locks that would play an invaluable role in the murder mystery that would captivate the world after that fateful morning of August 4th, 1892. Today the house is just as it was. The furnishings retain their rightful place, the decor has been painstakingly duplicated, and the original hardware and doors are still intact. Artifacts from the murder case are displayed, while memorabilia from the era line shelves and manteltops. A visitor is literally transported back to that morning, when a perfect storm of events culminated in a double murder. Number 5. The Bell Witch Cave. The Bell Witch is an American legend centered on the 19th-century Bell family of northwest Robertson County, Tennessee. Widely considered by ghost hunters and paranormal investigators as America's most haunted location, the story of the Bell family dates back to 1804. John Bell moved his wife, Lucy, and their children from North Carolina to Robertson County, Tennessee, where he purchased 320 acres of farmland along the Red River. The family lived a peaceful life for 13 years, but in the summer of 1817, the family would experience things that would change their lives forever. What started as seeing strange animals on the farm led to hearing eerie sounds in their cabin. Several accounts varied on who or what was causing the disturbances or why they were tormenting the Bell family. The sounds the family heard escalated to a voice speaking directly to them, until it could be heard in every room of the house, while especially terrorizing John's youngest daughter, Betsy, with beatings that left her unconscious. The notoriety of this unseen force spread throughout the countryside and left the Bell family with people camping out on their farm by the hundreds, hoping to witness this strange phenomenon. This Bell Witch, as it became known, vowed to kill John Bell, and subsequently took credit for his death 3 years later on December 20th, 1820, when a vial was found next to his deathbed with a strange liquid inside. John Bell's death was attributed to the Bell Witch, making Tennessee the only state to recognize a person's death to the supernatural. The Bell Witch was also known for her accurate predictions of the future and her vows to John Bell's children of her return in future years. Number 4. Sally House, built in the 1800s. This home was built for Michael Finney and his family, who lived in the home until 1947. 4 members of the Finney family died of natural causes in the home throughout the years. A young couple later bought the home in the 90s, and they soon started to experience strange, sometimes even violent occurrences in the home. Apparitions, disembodied voices, objects moving on their own, shadow people, attacks, you name it. This could be why the home has gained much media coverage over the last 20 years. Some believe that the Sally House is home to a portal of sorts that allows entities from the spirit world to enter our physical realm. Though the home is referred to as the Sally House, there's no steadfast proof that a girl named Sally ever resided there. However, there are reports of a man named Dr. Charles Finney owning the home and operating his office out of the first floor of the residence. The legend of Sally arose when Dr. Finney attempted to perform emergency surgery on Sally, which resulted in her death. Some stories say that when Dr. Finney realized that the girl's appendix was on the verge of rupture, he opted to perform her surgery at his residence without any anesthetics and later died on the operating table. While the Sally story can't be confirmed, it's no legend that the home has seen its fair share of dark events. It was discovered in the early 2000s that a pentagram was drawn on the basement floor of the home. Satanic ritualistic remnants have even been discovered, as well as a luminal test that was performed which highlighted signs of blood spatter in the closet of the master bedroom. After Tony and Debbie Pickman moved in, a month passed without activity. Once they began to settle into their new home, lights started to dim on their own, and animals began to act strangely. After the birth of their son, the activity picked up even more, and strange molds grew on household items. At one point, the couple even returned home from a day out to find all of the nursery's stuffed animals in a circle on the floor. After 2 years of being assaulted mentally and physically in the home, the Pickmans finally moved out. Debbie Pickman now believes that Sally was not the spirit of a little girl, but a malevolent entity posing as a child in order to gain the trust of the family.
Number 3. Franklin House. Franklin Castle was built in 1864 for a well-to-do German immigrant, Hannes Tiedemann, his wife Louise, their first 3 children, and Hannes's mother, Vibeke. The deaths began in 1891, with the Tiedemann's 15-year-old daughter Emma reportedly dying from diabetes. Within the next month, Vibeke would pass at the castle, and then, over the next 4 years, the Tiedemann family would lose 3 more children. And finally, on March 24, 1895, Louise herself would pass after a bout with liver disease. Over the course of its first 4 years, this magnificent 4-bedroom, 4.5-bath structure saw almost the entire Tiedemann family die within its walls due to tragic natural causes. It would seem that young Emma's death from diabetes at 15 would just simply be sad and tragic, but not so fast. Whispers swirled about her actual death, coming by hanging from rafters in the attic. Also, and curiously, the actual causes of death were never reported for the other 3 children or Hannes's mother. Rumours swirled that a niece had also been hung in a secret tunnel beneath the castle. A mistress of Hannes was found strangled, and there was even the speculated murder of a servant girl who Hannes was having an affair with. Number 2. Biltmore Estate. While the estate sees so many visitors every year, there probably is no shortage of ghost stories that can be told about the Biltmore Estate. Many past visitors and even staff members have told stories of hearing a voice whispering the name George repeatedly in the hallways. It is believed that the spirit of Edith Vanderbilt herself is wandering the halls and possibly searching for her husband, who is also believed to be another spirit that is reported to also live in the mansion as well. Most of the visitors had reported seeing spirits going up or down the stairs. Sounds of footsteps had also been heard on multiple occasions. Not to be outdone, there have been reports of strange smells, cold spots, and eerie feelings when visitors would go up or down the stairs. To add to the strange factor, there are a number of headless mannequins dressed in 20th century clothing that are stored in one of the 200 rooms of the house. Another haunted spot is also on the property. The old forestry compound that once was the Biltmore Forestry School was the site of a prostitute's murder. The spirit of the woman, along with a few others who were executed by hanging inside the old building, is said to be haunting the halls of the old compound. However, they have never been sighted anywhere beyond that part of the property. Eventually, in 1974, the house was sold to Sam Muscatello, who saw the castle's potential for tourism and began holding ghost tours. Number 1. Axe House. Josiah Moore and his wife Sarah, their 4 kids as well as 2 young guests, were brutally murdered in the family home in a grisly case that shook the small town. Then it went cold. When investigators searched to find who could commit such a heinous act, all of their leads were dead ends. Despite numerous suspects, 2 trials, and even a confession, the case was never solved. When a stranger broke into the sleepy Villisca, Iowa home and bludgeoned its 8 sleeping inhabitants to death. Joe and Sarah Moore were asleep upstairs, while their 4 children were in a room just down the hall. In a guest room were the 2 Stillinger sisters, there for a sleepover. After murdering the Moores and the Stillinger sisters, the killer had done a sort of ritual, one could say. He had covered the parents' heads with sheets and the Moore children's faces with clothing. He then crept through each room of the home, covering all of the mirrors and windows with any cloth and towel he could find. The home has switched hands a few times over the past century, and the reports of unexplained phenomena just keep coming. Disembodied laughter and children's voices play over and over like a record, repeating the last night of the lives of the kids in the Villisca home. Unexplained screams, movements, and even a strange fog have also been reported. Unusual behavior of visitors to the house also points to possessions occurring at the home.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Which of these haunted homes left you the most intrigued? Leave us a comment and let us know. But before you go, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more sinister lists like this one. Hope to see you again.